All right, so spilling the beans, unpacking the Verizon DBIR 2025. Again, I'm Dean Shealy, just a security resource here, one of several at High Point Networks, and going to be co-presenting with a friend of mine, a colleague, somebody that I really look up to, Lynn Soweth. She's going to be doing the second part of the presentation today. And we don't rehearse this. It's kind of like live television. It's a little bit informal. And so I haven't heard Lynn's side of the presentation, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to say as well. Every time she says something, I learn something new. So super excited about that. And we're gonna, at least my part of the presentation, I'm gonna hit a lot of things really quickly. Um, and the intent of that is just to kind of get you an overview or a taste of what the Verizon DBIR said this year. And then I'm hoping if any of those particular topics or subjects catches your eye, that you'll go back to the DBIR and maybe read it in detail or give me a call, an email, or whatever it is to kind of go through those things in person if you'd like to. All right, so let's jump into it. So, what is the DBIR? It's a statistical report. It's like very, very mathematically, statistically driven. And if you guys haven't read it before, and again, I hope you jump up and do. It's absolutely free. It's 100 pages long. It's one of maybe 3 or 4 reports that come out annually that have a tremendous impact on the messaging of cybersecurity. Really, it'll help drive that conversation for a year. It's also one of the few reports that I love reading because it's not product driven and it's not influenced by a certain vendor or a certain product or anything like that. So it's not bent. It's really kind of straight down the middle. Again, it's free. I don't know how they do that. It's like one of the last few things in the world where it's like somebody does this out of the kindness of their heart. Lastly, I should say this: it is done by Verizon, but it's not the cell phone division of the company. The story I always tell is it's like General Electric, right? They make microwaves, they make jet engines. The Verizon, the security part division of their company is puts this on. So no cell phones talked about. This is the 18th annual edition. The cool thing is if you go out to their website and read this report, and I'll show you this, that all of the historical editions are out there. It's kind of cool to see. You can go back and see what's changed over the time and what's basically stayed the same. This year, 20,000 incidents were studied and 12,000 breaches. The Verizon report probably has more statistical data behind it than any other report that you read. Not that you shouldn't read the other reports, but just know that the data sample here is very large, which I think adds some, validity to the stats that come out. Data is also taken from 93 countries, but most of it, frankly, comes from North America, the United States. In the past, they used to break the report up into verticals. Once it was 20, then it was 16, then it was 12. Now they've kind of broken it down to 4. I think the whole vertical thing is maybe going to go away. The reason for that is that they used to break it down by you could have like agriculture or manufacturing or whoever else it is, healthcare. But the statistics across those industries were so similar that I don't think they're going to break out an industry unless there's quite a bit of anomalies or differences there. A lot of the data comes from again, non-manufacturers like CIS, the MITRE folks, SANS folks, CISA, the ISACs, but there definitely are vendors that contribute to this as well. For example, there's some email insight And Google and Microsoft were tapped for insight on email because they probably see more messages every day than maybe other vendors do in an entire year. You know what I mean? Yeah, so if you want to download it, read it, just Google Verizon DBIR, or there's a link to it as well, really easy to do. Again, all 7 previous years are available. That's just an example of that. That's a screenshot from their website. If you want to sign up and download the report, you can knock your name in there and whatnot and, click download. But if you click this view only button, it'll pop up the PDF and you can save it. Okay. So you don't have to drop your name or anything if you want to avoid that. Here's the deal. Like I've put my name and stuff in to download it in the past, and their little fine print there says, yeah, we might email you this, that, or contact. Like they really don't spam you, or if they do, it's very, very light. So again, this is one of the weird things about the report is that they're not doing this to drive marketing or a product. Again, I don't get it. It's just really cool that they do it, and it's not influenced by whoever those folks may be. Okay, so why the presentation today? Again, if you look at information security, cybersecurity as risk management, the more that we know about threat probability, and that's what a lot of these statistics are that we're going to talk about today. The more that we know about threat probability, if something is highly probable, that can help drive control priorities, right? So if the probability of an event or a risk is high, which we're going to be able to tell through these statistics today, and the impact is high, usually it's a financial impact, we're going to hear a little bit about that. If those things are high, then we want to prioritize controlling that risk. Right. So that's the whole purpose of the DBIR in going through this is, the catchphrase through COVID or whatever is like, follow the science. But this is literally following the science when it comes to risk management and controls. Okay. Agenda. Lynn, I promise I'm watching the clock. I'm going to fly through this really quick. I'm going to hit kind of what's new in the DBIR this year, because sometimes there's a lot of overlap from year to year to year. Hackers kind of do the same things year after year after year because they're working. This year, there's actually some new stuff. So I'm going to hit that first. Then the second half of my presentation, we're going to talk about the things that you kind of see year after year. So updates on the traditional. I'm trying to get this done in 30 minutes, and I'm really going to try to stick to that. Then we're going to jump over to Lynn's portion of the presentation. Again, I'm really excited to hear that. Our director of cybersecurity, Lynn Soeth there. Kind of to zoom in on this a little bit. What's new? Espionage, we're going to talk about. How fun is that? AI and cyber risk, right? Everybody wants to know what's going on there. Third-party risk, we're going to talk about. Updates on what's going on with ransomware. There's a really neat statistic that, frankly, I've never seen before or just glossed over it, but they talk about how many people actually pay the ransom. That's always kind of been one of life's mysteries to me. It's like, do people pay for the ransom? How many and, how much and all this stuff. There's a significant stat for SMBs out there. Might be one of the most important slides of the presentation, so stick around for that. This season's general stats related to ransomware. Oops, I skipped ahead a little bit. We're going to talk about initial access vectors, the human element we always have to talk about, and then I'm literally going to take like 1 or 2 minutes to kind of crystal ball into the future and kind of predict, speculate. Not too much. I think we can all maybe see some stuff coming down the pipeline, but we'll crystal ball things for a couple minutes. Okay, espionage has always kind of been around, but something changed in the last year, which actually makes it statistically significant, or at least statistically noticeable. And this is motivation for breaches. And it's always been, just about 100% motivated by money, by finances. But what they found this year is that 17% of breaches were espionage motivated. Now, espionage has always been around, but it's always been, maybe literally like 2-3% of the motivation. It's always been below 5%. But boom, here it is all of a sudden at 17%. I don't know the reason for that, but that's something that came out of their findings. It's primarily the motivation for nation state actors. And there's always a little bit of give and take in the statistics there, but let's just say, espionage with the nation state folks, that's like 75% of their motivation. 30% financial. I don't know. Sometimes I think espionage and financial are kind of the same thing, but espionage, I think they're maybe trying to get a hold of intellectual property and plans for this and that, and who knows what else. The other, I'm not quite sure what that is, but yeah, the focus of this is on espionage. How does espionage take place? Back doors. Maybe you have a developer that puts a backdoor in place, through an application. If it's somebody internal to a company, maybe they have the rights or the type of job that they're doing that gives them the ability to establish a command and control communication, especially if that originates within the company. So command shell there is at 56%. VPN there, 25%. I'm not quite sure what they're doing with the VPN there, but just wanted to make you aware of that. So backdoors and probably command and control. A couple things to watch out for. Key takeaways from espionage, right? Primarily nation states, are primarily motivated by espionage. If it's organized crime, it's probably still largely financially motivated. Backdoors, again, were the primary vector at 61%. And if I look like at an internal employee that's trying to conduct espionage, again, get hold of intellectual property, trade secrets, plans, what's happening with stock prices, acquisitions, mergers, and all of this stuff. Why are the bad actors doing it? I mean, literally the person that's kind of setting up the command and control. Well, they might be an IT administrator. They might be a security administrator. They might be a network administrator. They're probably making a pretty good salary. But then if you put this espionage work on top of it, like you're doing work for a nation state, the money that comes from that, basically the payout that comes to the bad actors, probably pretty significant. I would guess that's probably the driver for it, right? This kind of a smart alecky remark, but when I think of the espionage thing, I think of an internal actor, right? Somebody that's within a bank or within a hospital or within a research institute or whatever it may be. All attacks ultimately become insider attacks. Right, because once a hacker gets in, and even if it's an external hacker, once they get a foothold into your environment, at that point, it's basically an insider attack as they pivot through your network and exfiltrate data. So that ultimately leads to zero trust, but that's another presentation for another day. AI and cyber risk, kind of changing gears here a little bit. We've seen, this data primarily comes from Google Gmail and Microsoft's email global platform, M365, Hotmail, Outlook.com, all that stuff. They've seen AI being used in phishing for a few years here now. Looks like it went from about 5% to about 10%. How is it being used? It's obviously the quality of the email. If graphics need to be designed that, mimics some logo or something like that, AI can go out and do research on LinkedIn and so forth, or Facebook, to get an idea of maybe how an email should be crafted. AI can, be used in a variety of ways when it comes to phishing. So it's definitely on the rise. It's maybe up around 10% now. Is it going to increase in the future? Absolutely. Um, Kind of an associated or a related correlated stat that comes out of this is, even though AI, the in, even though the use of AI is increasing in phishing attempts, the success of phishing attempts has stayed rather flat. So as AI is used more in phishing attacks, we will have to see if that correlates to more successful phishing attacks. You know what I mean? So we'll just have to watch that year after year. AI, what do you know what your employees are sharing with AI? So the stat here is that 15% of employees routinely access unapproved generative AI platforms on their corporate devices, right? And this is increasing the potential for data leaks. Okay, so what does this mean? Like at High Point Networks, Copilot is something that we frequently use. I love it. You record stuff, you get transcripts, you take notes, you go through the emails and, give me an outline or overview of what's happening, help me write this, whatever, whatever. However, um, there are other AIs out there. It might be ChatGPT, it might be Grok, it might be Midjourney for, graphics, it might be a data analytics platform, this, that, and the other thing. In other words, there are specialized AI tools out there that might be outside of the capability that your business's approved AI tools offer. So as a result of that, employees are going out on their own in tapping into other AI tools that are not approved by your employer. Okay, so what's the risk there? Well, like if you want to do data analytics, you might do an export of data from your CRM platform, ERP platform, put it in a spreadsheet, a CSV file. Then you might upload that to an unapproved AI tool to say, hey, do analytics on this. Do you find any, correlation between this, that, and the other thing? Can you give me insights on this or thing? So anyway, what you're essentially doing is putting sensitive corporate information. You're taking sensitive corporate information basically out of your corporation and putting it into an unapproved third-party AI tool, and that might open up, opportunities, for data leakage or exploit. Here's just a list of, some of the most popular third-party tools out there that specialize, like in marketing, business analytics, coding, all kinds of stuff like that, marketing and whatnot. So yeah, if you have one or two AI tools, in your corporation, just know that, 15% of your employees are probably reaching out to other tools. So what do you do in a situation like that? Just encourage your employees to say, hey, if you want to use a specialized tool like Midjourney or whatever else, set a culture to, hey, just approach your manager, present a use case scenario, where you're going to get a return on investment to pay a $15 subscription a month to this, that, or the other thing. And, maybe they'll approve it. So that'd be the right way to do it. Get it on the AI application approval list, basically. Okay, third-party risk. This is the way the DBIR is presenting this is a little, you kind of have to read between the fine print here. Anyway, I just read it. Unwitting partner in crime rose from 15% to 30%. The percentage of breaches where a third party was involved doubled from the previous year, highlighting the importance of choosing partners and suppliers carefully. So when I first read this, I'm like, oh my gosh, High Point Networks is a managed service provider. So does that mean that any, company out there that's providing, like IT managed services or whatever it may be, is this statistic related to that? That's kind of where my mind went, first of all. And it is, but to a very, very small degree. I mean, maybe like less than 5%. What 95% of this stat relates to is a third party. Let's define a third party as oh like Adobe. Let's just say Adobe. And Adobe has a flaw in their software, or maybe you have an antivirus product that you use, and there's a flaw in that software. So the software manufacturer or author is considered the third party. And then if there's a flaw in that software, which then results to an incident or a breach, that kind of fits in this category here. So the purpose of the yellow arrows is just, suppliers and vulnerabilities is primarily what this comes down to. So when you see this stat throughout the year, and you will, um, just note that yes, managed service providers like High Point Networks or Pfizer for the financial industry, or Jack Henry for financial industry, or Epic for healthcare. Yeah, they all provide services and stuff, but this is more so for software and software development shops. But there are some takeaways from this, right? So anyway, the vast majority of this stat is from flawed software authored by third parties. Okay. Now, for companies like High Point Networks, where professional services, managed services are offered, absolutely do the due diligence to find out if they have their security shop in order, so that you know that if you partner with High Point Networks or whoever else it may be, if you're partnering with them, that they're not presenting risk into your organization, right? And the best way to do that is to ask for attestation to SOC 1 and SOC 2 audits, which is a very standardized way to tell if an organization has their internal security and risk management professionalized and under control. Sometimes in contracts, you can say, hey, we want to come into High Point's networks and do our own little audit. That's a little unusual. However, I did work for a bank where that was a very common practice, where we would go out and actually audit people that were providing services to us. That's a little unusual, but that's a part of a third risk management program, which will probably become more popular in the past with all industry. And again, in regards to High Point or somebody that might have remote access to your environments, that might present a third-party risk, I think one of the biggest things you can do there, if you have an MSP coming into your environment, if you have contractors coming into your environment, what I would suggest is disabling that access, disabling those accounts when they're not in use, right? Only turn them on when you know somebody's going to come in and do work. And then if there's any way that you can require MFA for that person to come in remotely and do work in your environment, I strongly encourage that as well. Okay, ransomware trends. More organizations are being held hostage to ransomware. 44% of all cybersecurity breaches involve ransomware. Okay. Now here comes maybe one of the most important slides of the whole presentation today, in my opinion. Okay, read through this. Ransomware is also disproportionately affecting small organizations and larger organizations. This would be, how do they define that? That's companies with 1,000 people or more. In larger organizations, ransomware is a component of about 40% of breaches, while SMBs, so this is 1,000 people or less, while SMBs experience ransomware-related breaches to the tune of 88%. So we've been, or I can just speak for myself, I've been telling SMBs that I meet with for the last 3 or 4 years, I've literally been telling them, when you plan your security controls, when you talk about insurance, when you talk about recovery, risk, and this, that, and the other thing, I'd strongly suggest to them to look through those rose-colored glasses, to look through the lens of everything you do in the context of ransomware. And I think we now kind of have a statistic that, and take all this with a grain of salt, but we have a statistic that now substantiates that to a relatively strong degree. Small businesses, it's all about ransomware. Here's the interesting one. Percentage of ransoms not paid in ransomware incidents per year. I've never seen a stat like this. This is super interesting. So year 2022, according to their data, remember, what did they see? 12,000 breaches and 20,000 incidents or something like that. So tens of thousands. 2022, 50% of the people out there were paying the ransom, right? 2023, also about 50%. 2024, it's maybe now in the mid 40s now, but it's just shocking to me how many people pay the ransom, right? And at that point, it's really a business decision, right? Or are we going to lose more money if we don't pay the ransom, or if we pay the ransom now, can we get up and operational, more quickly? It's really a benefit risk type of calculation that the leadership is trying to do. And not that we advocate this, but I mean, it's spilling the beans, right? You're going to get the brutal honesty here. It's sometimes paying the ransom might be the right business decision. I can put it towards you, frankly. Okay, pay up or else. 115K is the average payout for ransomware attacks. Ransomware negotiators are super good at talking, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or I should say, upper hundreds down to lower hundreds, and they can really reduce it. Speed of payment can be a factor as well. This is kind of a goofy little chart. There's a little bubble thing here, but basically think of it as a bell-shaped curve. Probably maybe how it should have been done. But the median payout, again, is 115K. You can see up on the upper level here and get into, $10 million plus. But the median for it, $115,000. Who gets hit disproportionately? At the top, we have manufacturing. Professional could be like, legal, architecture, information technology, sectors like that, right? Then healthcare, wholesale, public admin, so that'd be like city, county government, probably state government too, federal, probably not much so. But you can see how that breaks out. So manufacturing, professional, heads up there. I wonder if manufacturing, the espionage and things like that, I wonder if that kind of goes together. I just don't know. Initial access vectors. Okay, this is in the DBIRs every year. I mean, if you really go back to the beginning of time, it seems like these are always kind of there. But we need to do our due care and talk about them. Credential abuse is always huge. Vulnerability exploit is also huge, which has formally taken second place for the most significant initial access vector, which is a change. We'll talk about that. And then social engineering, of course, our favorite, right? So here it is statistically. So credential abuse and exploitation of vulnerabilities pretty much tied. Phishing has kind of been in second place for a long, long time. All three of these are pretty much equal, guys, right? But phishing just formally, I guess, is kind of in third place, but they're all pretty much tied. I equate in that little thing there is just to show that there was a little flip flop there. I kind of equate those cyber initial access vectors to, if I can use like a health metaphor, right? If you eat right, sleep right, and that just improves everything in your life, or it certainly helps uh, protect yourself from more further complications down the road. And these are very simple things, and we all know that, right? We all know that to be true, I hope. So again, when we go back to our cyber initial access vectors, think of these as those health things. Like we got to take care of credentials. We got to take care of vulnerabilities. We got to take care of social. Back to the health thing, they eat, exercise, hydrate and sleep. We have to do those as well as we can every day. And if we mess one of those up, we have a horrible night of sleep, just one horrible night of sleep, it can screw up the whole next day. If we eat a bunch of junk food or whatever, we're going to feel crappy for another day or two. So like that, these kind of fundamental cyber things, we really need to do them the best that we can day after day after day. If we don't, there's going to be consequences, maybe almost immediate type of consequences. So to hit on credentials here really quick, this is just a refresher, the top three. We get into credentials. If you read through the DBIR, again, it's like 100 pages long. The word credential appears on darn near every page, right? And there's too many graphics and graphs and charts and histograms and bubble graphs and what to even show that. So I'm going to show you something a little more useful, I think. So we've all seen this security onion thing. I think it was developed by Northrop, 2010 or whatnot. People say it might be a little out of date. That's okay. It's more of a metaphor, right? A metaphor of layered controls, and here's all your different controls and in each layer, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we all get it. The one thing that I didn't notice, frankly, for years and years and years is that there's a common denominator, which is identity and access management, which is basically credentials that transcends every layer. And in fact, it affects every control in every layer. So this is why credentials, identity, and access management are so valuable to the bad actors, because if they get an initial foothold or through a credential, or if they get a powerful enough credential, it just will slice through all your layers of controls, like a knife through hot butter. So just wanted to talk about that. Right. I mean, just think about it. Every technology on the onion here, it's all driven by credentials, right? Every piece of software, every process and every piece of software runs, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. It's almost 100%. Every process, every application runs within the security context of an identity. Period. Point blank. Full stop. Got to have those under control. How do we protect that? MFA everywhere, like literally everywhere. And there might be two factors of authentication. It might be, something password. It might be, something you have. It could be a YubiKey token. It could be something that you enter into a phone, but you can add additional factors. I mean, not just two, but three. I mean, maybe it knows, my geolocation. Maybe it's four. Maybe it recognizes the devices that I'm authenticating from. I use like three devices and nothing else. If I'm authenticating from a device that's not one of my free three devices, then the probability of that being a malicious attempt to authenticate is high. So when we talk about MFA, it used to be kind of two things. Well, why not it be three? Why not it be four? Just something to think about. Don't use business creds, username and password outside of your business. Okay, now what does that mean? Like I could literally sign up for Netflix using my HighPoint Networks user account name, and I could use my HighPoint Networks password to sign up for Netflix. Now, just because I'm using my HighPoint Networks username doesn't mean it has any relationship or tie back to my employer. It's just the same username, it's the same password. If Netflix were to have a breach, and they got to hold a bunch of creds or whatnot, and the bad actors look through a list of the stuff that they have stolen, and they see that, oh, here's a guy named Dean, and it looks like the domain name that is a part of his username actually relates to a business, right? So then they're going to take that, try to hack the business. As we go forward, just be cognizant of service account passwords, also API credentials, certs, and so forth. Vulnerability. This year, everything about vulnerabilities. On average, takes about 32 days to patch things. This is a wonky little chart right here. But the blue dots basically represent edge devices. Now, when CISA or whoever else comes out with basically a critical 0-day, hey, heads up, here's a critical vulnerability. We see it being exploited in the wild, right? The blue represents the amount of time that it takes the bad actors to, at scale, begin exploiting that vulnerability. And as you can see, it's on day 0, right? That's why they call it 0-day. Okay. So we'll get into the key for this. That's external facing things. On chart number 2 here, it's more internal KEVs issued. A lot of the patching, excuse me, a lot of the patching happens on day 1 or day 5. But the median here is 32 days to patch for critical vulnerability that they know is being exploited. So what's the lesson learned from here? The bad guys are scanning your edge devices for vulnerabilities. Are you? Right? Need to be doing that. If a critical KEV is issued for your edge devices, patch them immediately. All right, they're called 0 days for a reason. For internal resources, you really got to patch them within 4 days. I know that's fast, but with the advent of AI and the way that it's going to be able to write and deliver exploits and payloads quickly, man, you got to do it as quickly as you can. Social engineering, and then I'll be about done here. Lynn, again, just refresher here. Social engineering, one of the top 3. Of social engineering, phishing, right? Still number 1. Pretexting, significant there, number 2. Prompt bombing, that's kind of a fancy little term where when multi-factor authentication is happening, and let's say you get a prompt on your phone to say, yes, it's me, allow. Sometimes the hackers will keep trying to authenticate, every minute. And then your phone is buzzing and it's dinging and it's buzzing and it's dinging and you just get tired of it. So you just hit accept on that MFA prompt just out of frustration. And then it allows that bad actor in. So that's kind of what prompt bombing is. So that's something to be aware of. We talked about this before, but again, we're talking about social engineering here. Again, this is AI related to email. It's definitely there. It's definitely increasing. The business email compromise, something we're always keeping our eye on. This is when somebody might steal a supplier's credentials. They get a hold of the supplier's email account. They pretend to be a supplier. They contact, a customer, accounts payable and say, hey, you need to wire us X amount of money. That's kind of business email compromise. It almost always results in financial fraud. On average today, it's $50,000 for a payout related to business email compromise. Okay, this is not a salesy presentation, right? This just came right out of the DBIR here. It says, foundation of user awareness and security training on how to report suspected social attacks remains one of the most important controls at your disposal, right? So really, you got to have like an email, what I would call email firewall, email security platform, in addition to the training to really make the most of it. All right. This is a kind of a hard one to decipher, but humans are involved in so many risks and breaches and stuff, 60%. What does that really mean? We're sloppy with our credentials, social actions, we're sloppy with things. We can set up and configure things incorrectly. We can email spreadsheets that are full of sensitive information by accident. Humans can interact with malware through email and whatever else it may be. So this comes back to the security awareness training, but just the human element is always significant. It always will be, just because it's so vast and there's so many variables and so many opportunities. Okay, crystal ball. Just 60 seconds here, and then I'll hand it over to Lynn. AI, guys. I heard this from the director of Google X on just Saturday, a few days ago. And the intelligence, the capability of AI doubles every 5 months now, right? So from 1 to 2, from 2 to 4, from 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 to 64 to, it exponentially is going to go nuts. And the only way we're going to be able to keep up with it is to fight AI with AI. And that requires telemetry. Like there's no other way to do it. To substantiate this theory, 2 of the largest acquisitions last year were Palo Alto Networks purchasing the software as a service arm of IBM QRadar, and then also Cisco purchased Splunk. So those are the mechanisms by which telemetry will be gathered and then also analyzed for indicators of compromise, and anything else where they can find correlations of attacks or whatnot, or behavior. What's going to follow this is automation. That is, I can say without a doubt, that this is how it'll happen. Put everything together, we'll analyze it, and then that'll ultimately result in automation. A good friend of mine, who's always a little bit ahead of things, like tangibly ahead of things. I talked to him a while ago. He goes, Dean, we're all data scientists now in regards to security. One last thing, as we talk about AI, as you talk about AI within your businesses, basically every AI conversation is also ultimately a data governance conversation. So just keep that in mind. Let's get our data under control. What data do we have? Where is it? Is it sensitive? Who has access to it? Why do they have access to it? Should AI have access to it? That's the main reason we need our data governance under control. So I'll just kind of end with that and hand it over now to my good friend and director of cybersecurity here at High Point Networks, Lynn Soeth.
Well, Thank you, Dean.
Thank
I
you,
always
Lynn.
appreciate your insight. The Verizon report is very thorough every year, always interesting. And so thank you for breaking it down into small, manageable pieces. Appreciate that. And my part of this particular presentation now is to take all that data that Dean just gave to us and say, what do we do next? And how can High Point help with that? So start sharing my screen here.
Yep,
Good
looks
at
good,
that?
Lynn.
We're up.
Yep,
All right.
can see it. Yep.
Excellent. So basically, I'm Lynn Soeth, Service Manager of Security Services here, and that's the cybersecurity team at High Point Networks. And so the cybersecurity team, think of the penetration tests, the vulnerability assessments, security planning, those types of things. But essentially, we're going to talk a little bit about what High Point in general can do, not just in particular the cybersecurity team. And I like to talk about the security cycle that you need to do. It starts with a plan. You always have to have a plan before you do something. If you're going to build a house, you have a blueprint, you have a plan for how to build that house. And so we suggest that you start with a security plan of some type. Once you get that plan in place, you're going to do the remediation pieces. You're going to put that plan into action. You're going to plug any holes you have. You're going to purchase all the tools that you need. After that, we're going to do a vulnerability assessment. We're going to see, did that plan of action get taken into place? What other gaps did we find now? Maybe we have a gap in the network. Maybe something new has come out. Maybe there's a new 0-day. So we're going to do a vulnerability assessment and find out where gaps are there. We're going to remediate that, plug any holes that we have. We're going to do a penetration test at that point. We're really going to test that plan. We're going to test our vulnerabilities. If we find one, we're going to dig around and see if we can get someplace with it. Again, we're going to plug those holes. By the time you're done with that, the security landscape has changed. We'll have another Verizon data breach report out. We need to look at something new, so we need to revisit that plan. This is a cycle that goes on. If you look at this particular graphic, everything that is in blue, we have a cybersecurity team here to help you with. All of the circles that are in orange, we have other teams to help you with. We have a systems team that can help you get secured. We have a network team that can help you fix your firewall holes. We have an as a service team that if you're way too busy, we can help. We'll handle it. We can do things for you. How fast does this cycle go? That really is up to every customer. And it really depends on how fast you can handle the orange pieces of this project. There's no reason to move on to the next blue piece until you've done some remediation. We can continue to test, but if we're just giving you the same answer every time, that's not worth your money. So we want you to spend your money wisely, and we have lots of different ways to help you to do that. And how frequent this goes, for some customers, every 6 months, for some customers, every 3 years, really depends on availability, depends on what else is going on in your world, depends on your budget. So as Dean and I, this is kind of the basis of what we're going to talk about now. I'm going to plug in the parts of the blue and the orange circles. And as Dean mentioned when he began, we didn't practice this together. We didn't rehearse this together. I asked Dean, what are you going to cover? So I have an idea of what's going on. So he gave me a few bullet points. So I'm kind of going to talk to those bullet points that Dean talked about earlier. He talked about what's new in this particular Verizon report. And there were 3 things that he mentioned there: third-party risk, espionage, AI, and cyber risk. Let's talk about third-party risk a little bit. How can we help you there? If you are using suppliers and you want to know their security posture, we have an online tool that we can connect you with, and that takes care of sending questionnaires to your suppliers, having them answer the questions regarding their security posture, and sending that back to you. We can track that for you in an online platform. You can repeat this yearly. You could repeat this more often. The questionnaires are already there. You can choose some of the questions that you want to ask your suppliers to make sure that they are being secure in when they come on site or handling your data. This can be done as part of a SOC audit as well. We can help you prepare for a SOC audit. We're not the certifying company, but we certainly can get you ready to be certified in a SOC audit, and this could be part of that as well. In addition to third-party risk, people coming from outside into your network, potentially like Highpoint Networks does to help you with something, you want to make sure that your network is segmented so they can only get to spaces that you want them to get to. You don't want your printers riding on your same production network. You don't want your experimental sandbox riding in your same production network. So we have network teams that can help you segment your network, build your firewall so things are VLAN off. We also have teams that can help you secure your devices. Intune would be one, so we can make sure that a device is contained, containerized, so that company data that would be on a device can be easily pulled back. How about MFA? We can help you set up Duo. We have teams that are happy to do that. Other MFA products as well. We also would love to have a pre-sales call with you to determine which MFA product would be in your best interest. While you're thinking about third-party risk, I'm also going to suggest that you think about your risk too. Oftentimes you want to do a planning engagement. You want to use a framework of some sort to help determine how you're going to fix risk within your organization. The Verizon report uses the CIS controls, Center for Internet Security. They're a wonderful living, breathing organization that is concerned about security around the world. They stay on top of what's going on. They have controls that they suggest that you do in a particular order. They're a great organization. We like to use those same controls because they're very agnostic. They're not like HIPAA, which focuses on medicine, FERPA that focuses on schools. They're very agnostic and they're basic cyber hygiene. We can help you build a plan using those controls. We have an online tool that you can use to track those controls for yourself. We will come and talk with you about best practices for implementing those controls. CIS is a great platform. CMMC is another platform that is going to be gaining more and more ground if you're doing anything with the government, even if you're supplying a part to build a small widget that is a teeny portion of a product that the Department of Defense may use, you need to comply with the CMMC regulations. We can come and do a planning session with you and get you up to speed on that. Espionage, AI, cyber risk, these all start in the planning stages as well. You need a plan, you need a security gap assessment that sets up that plan. And then once you've got those things in place, there are some remediations that you can do to help keep yourself safe from espionage and your cyber risk. Policies, number one, make them clear. We can help you with the policies. We can provide you with examples. We're happy to come on site and work with you to develop a site security policy and train your users annually on those policies. It's a good idea to have them sign off at least on an annual use policy on a regular basis, just so that they know the rules. We as humans like to follow the rules. And so if you clearly state the rules for your users, it makes it easier for them to follow. The other thing that we can help you with is defining procedures. For example, let's avoid some espionage here, or even some finances leaving our company by having a procedure around wire transfers. Wire transfers can't be done just through an email request from the CIO. It has to be done through an email request, that's fine, but we have to actually talk in person, which would be your second factor of authenticating this wire transfer does really need to happen. Train users on your policies, train users on phishing, train users on common pitfalls of security that they're going to fall into. We have a platform called KnowBefore. that we will manage for you. Even make sure that your users get a phishing email so they know what that looks like on a monthly basis. Training for you, whether that be monthly, weekly, quarterly, whatever you decide, we can do that for you. And don't forget locking down the network and the perimeter. As Dean talked about, stay on top of the patching. We have teams that can check your firewall rules for you just to make sure that they're secure and staying on top of things. We have endpoint protection, which is an absolute must. We can help you with that if your plate is too full, as I said before. We can manage that stuff for you. We can provide an expert for you that can review your Microsoft security settings within the cloud, or maybe you haven't looked at your on-prem AD in quite a while. We have an offering that will run a scan on that and give you suggestions for security settings that can be tweaked. Another thing that we often do, set it and forget it. What about your security cameras? When was the last time you did firmware updates on your security cameras? Quick, easy vector in. We don't think about those very often, and especially if they're running on more of a flat network where you can get into a security camera and then pivot to someplace else. We have a service where we will once a month make sure that your cameras are up to date with their firmware, make sure they're at least on, and that your recording devices still have room for recordings in them. Lots of different options there. Dean also talked about ransomware updates. We can help you build an incident response plan so that we define who's going to do what during an incident, who's going to make the decisions, who is going to be in charge. And once you have that plan, you're much better off if you have a bad day. And if you are having a bad day, we also have an incident response team that we can put together for you. We don't do the deep dive into forensics. We'll leave that to your cyber insurance company, but we can certainly help get you back up and running as fast as possible. We can do both of those things for you. And we're coming up on an hour here, so let me just run through a few more things. Updates on the initial access vectors. That's where we're going to bring in that vulnerability scan to find out that you've got all of your holes plugged from externally. We also do internal vulnerability scans. We do penetration testing. Web applications. Don't forget about web applications. If you create any web applications or have any web applications outside, that is a huge vector into your environment. So we can test those as well. Human element, train, create a safe security culture so that people are comfortable coming to you and talking about security. They feel comfortable coming to you and saying, I might have made a mistake. I might have clicked on this wrong thing. We can provide personalized training as well. You as the IT staff say the same thing day after day after day, like till you're blue in the face. But if we come in from outside and say that exact same thing, it has a different meaning to people. We can also test the humans for you. We can do tabletop exercises so we can test your incident response plan, test the humans with KnowBe4, all kinds of different things there. After each scan, or after each time that we engage with you, we can set up a remediation project. So once we've determined the findings, we've got your vulnerabilities, we say, here are the holes that you should plug. We can get you hooked up with a project manager who can pull together all of the right resources to get your holes fixed. Whether that is systems teams guys, whether that's network guys, smart services people, whatever it is you need, we'll get a project manager to pull everything together. So how can we partner with you? A ton of different ways. And how do we help you? First, we'd love to help you decide your next step. Give your account manager a shout. Let's set up a pre-sales call, whether that be with the cyber team, whether you want to do firewall refresh with the network team, whether you want to set up Intune with the systems team. We're all available for wonderful pre-sales calls and to answer questions to help you keep moving forward. That's all I've got, Dean.
Yeah, Lynn, that was fantastic. And just to champion and promote Lynn a little bit here. And sorry, I'm looking at my screen over here. Um, Obviously, a thought leader when it comes to security. Lynn's been doing this for a long time. She sees it on, let's call it the prevention side, where they're doing assessments and pen testings and so forth. She's deeply involved in incident response when we do that. She also helps advise internally as to high points internal information security program and so forth. So when I talked about beginning this conversation about having an array or multiple information security professionals and thought leaders in our organization, Lynn is just an example of that. We have a CTO that's fantastic, our director of professional services. And then we have these specialists, maybe it's networking where, they're up on that. And then we have subspecialists, maybe a subspecialty of networking is wireless, right? And then we can get into that. So do we just information security expertise just peppered throughout the organization, and then we can bring these different specialties together, kind of like the Marvel movie, like the Avengers or something. We can bring everybody together to really look at complex situations and also plan out, strategies if that's something that you're interested in. Now, I'd like to have an opportunity for a little Q&A here in real time. Uh, sometimes they don't happen. Sometimes they go for 20 minutes. So think about any questions you might have. But before I get into that, um, if you think of any questions offline, just please email those to marketing@highpointnetworks.com. And I promise you that we will not spam you as a result of asking a question. But through that communication, we'll connect you with Lynn or myself or whomever else. If it's directed towards a specialty, we'll bring that resource in as well. But just in all, we are like, I'm just going to repeat what Lynn said. The way that we do this is we really want to form a relationship with the people that we work with. And the way that we approach security is that we want to listen first. What are your business objectives? What keeps you up at night? What are your significant risks? And then through a dialogue, both of us, the customer and ourselves, having equal footing, we'll work through that. And we come in with no bias, no emotion, no judgment. We will meet you where you are at, and we'll work together to get you towards your goals. So with that being said, do we have any questions here in real time? We'll just give it a few seconds or so. And if not, we can definitely take those offline. I would also say if you have any suggestions on topics that we should cover in the future, also email marketing@highpointnetworks.com. And I think a new thing that we're going to try is like, here's an example. I would love to sit down with Lynn kind of one-on-one and do a long format, kind of podcast type of thing, if you will. And we could focus on incident response or building a security plan or, building an incident response plan. I'd, love to sit down with our director of professional services and talk about this, that, or the other thing, or have a one-on-one with, one of our lead Palo Alto engineers to talk about how they are literally placing AI and ML co-processors in some of their higher end hardware to be able to analyze and make decisions on real time. So again, if you'd like to see content, that type of or that form of content, please let us know. And if there's any subjects you'd like to hear about, for example, I would love to speak with an insurance person. I'd love to speak with a tariff person. I'd love to, just to speak with a CISA person, this, that, and the other. If there are different folks or different disciplines that you would like to hear us have kind of a, I don't know, short, medium, long format conversation with, please let marketing know as well. Okay. Doesn't look like we have any questions, Lynn. So thank you so much, Lynn, for being a part of the conversation today. And thank you to the audience. We appreciate your time, and we hope that we added some value to this presentation today. All right.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks, everybody.